you know, in the 80s, bloody hell, how many were born in the 80s here? Probably not many, right? But you know, in the 80s, chocolate was a kid's category. You go to your grandmother, she'll probably really be embarrassed about putting a chocolate in her mouth, right? It was meant for children, and it was when the father or the mother, you know, wanted to give a little treat to the kid, you gave chocolate, right? Adults ate Indian sweets, right? Mysore pak or gulab jamun or, right? Something like that. That's what adults did. So then we said, this brand is getting limited by being a kid's brand. And we need to widen the appeal of this brand so that adults also start consuming chocolates like they do everywhere else in the world. And that's when this ad happened in the 90s.
There's something so real in everyone. There's something so real. Ask anyone. It's you, it's real, and the feeling is right. Something so real, change of life.
You can see, you know, how this is slowly becoming an adult brand. And then we said we need to massify it. It was too premium. It was for the elite. It was for the people who lived in the metros. The small town consumer would never identify with advertising like that or a brand like that. So we said we need to massify this brand.
दिल को जब खुशी छू जाए,
एक डेयरी मिल्क देना,
कुछ मीठा हो जाए।
अरे भाई साहब पैसे तो पप्पू देगा।
पैसे पप्पू देगा।
एक डेयरी मिल्क इधर मिली, पैसे पप्पू देगा।
ए भैया एक डेयरी मिल्क मुझे भी।
हाँ ये लो।
पैसे पप्पू देगा।
अरे पर बात क्या है?
पप्पू पास हो गया।
अरे पप्पू पास हो गया। ये पास हो गया, पप्पू पास हो गए। आजा, अरे क्या बात है, मेरा पप्पू तो पास हो गया।
आखिर 12वीं पास हो ही गया।
ये ले, कुछ मीठा हो जाए। डेयरी मिल्क, कुछ मीठा हो जाए। काले पैसे पप्पू देगा।
And finally, you know, really getting deeper and deeper into the Indian culture, which is really the campaign that's running currently. You might have seen the Shubharam campaign.
एक्सक्यूज मी, क्या आप अपनी डेयरी मिल्क का एक छोटा सा बाइट देंगी?
क्या मैं आपको जानती हूँ? तो
मेरी माँ कहती है कोई भी शुभ काम करने से पहले कुछ मीठा करना चाहिए, काम अच्छा होता है।
Well, unfortunate.
वैसे क्या
No, it's
काम करने जा रहे हो?
मैं सोचा था कि आपको घर छोड़ दूं। शुभारंभ, कुछ मीठा हो जाए।
So you can see, you know, how a brand evolves over generations as well, right? So different from the brand that started off in the 80s and what it is today. The next lesson is about getting comfortable outside of your comfort zone. And I can tell you personally, for me, my biggest learnings and experiences in life have come when I have been forced to go and do things outside my comfort zone. When I've been forced to go into jobs that I didn't want to do. I said, hey, boss, I don't want to do this. Or tell me, you know, is it a signal you're sending me to this job? It means, you know, you don't really want me here anymore. And I've had those conversations. But from every one of those jobs, I have come back so much richer and so much wiser that it's not funny. You know, when I went to East Africa, I went as managing director of the East African business, so Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And I didn't know this. But there are a lot of ethnic Indians in East Africa who went 100 years ago to build the railway line, and they all stayed there. And large numbers of ethnic Indians control the economy in East Africa. And I realized soon after my arrival that Indians were hated in East Africa because Indians have gone and exploited the Africans, the locals. And I went into my first meeting and we did something called New Leadership Assessment, where my entire team went into a separate room to come back and tell me what they felt about me or perceived about me when I had just arrived 3-4 weeks into the company. And one of the things they told me is that we don't know why we need an Indian to come here and tell us what to do. These were the exact words they told me as feedback 4 weeks after I've joined. Carried my family with me, with my furniture and stuff, landed in East Africa, and this is the welcome you're given. I was so much outside my comfort zone. I had never worked outside India. I had never worked in a different cultural context. And here it was. I had the most fascinating year and a half of my career thereafter. I told you that business had not grown and lost money. Right? We delivered double-digit growth for the first time in a decade in the 11th year. Broke even, made profit. And the greatest thing is people wept when I was leaving the company. The same people who looked at me in the eye and said, "Who the hell are you and why do we need you?" And I had been just thrown into the deep end of an entirely new business, new cultural context, and I had to swim or die. The lessons of how to deal with a situation like that cannot be taught in a textbook. It happens when you go out there into the big bad world. And there are many lessons like that. How many of you have seen the video of Steve Jobs at Stanford? Most of you. And he talks of 3 stories in life, right? And one of them is called connecting the dots. And this is when I got the right phrase in my own mind about it. Looking forward, you cannot understand the value of each experience that people with more gray hair than you tell you, "I think you need to go and do this job." It's good for you and you think, "Hey, I don't really want to do this. I am really interested in doing something else." But when you look back at your career, you know the value that each of those jobs have given. You can connect the dots, right? And you are what you are at that point because of each of those experiences. If you remove some of those dots, you're a different person. And jobs basically, and in business you have core functional skills, so doing better finance, doing better marketing, doing better sales, and there are some jobs that then give you leadership abilities and broaden your experiences. And we call it T-shaped capability. And you need T-shaped capability to continue to grow. You cannot just be a great marketer and not a good leader. You will hit your ceiling very, very soon in the real world because you deal with people and you have to deliver through people. Right? Delivery happens through people. So in my job today, I do very little personally. But my job is to make sure that the team is inspired and that they deliver. And the other thing for you to remember is that jobs don't make people. People make jobs. Everyone wants to go to a job where the previous guy was a smart guy and did a great job there and got recognized and got promoted. Therefore, you want to go there. And you don't want to go to another job where the previous guy was, pretty poor, didn't deliver, had to leave the company thereafter, and that job then gets a stigma. Good people go and make bad jobs great. They show the organization what that job is capable of delivering. So remember this, people make jobs, not the other way around. The 7th is to be future ready. In a market like India, if you are not ready for tomorrow, you're already obsolete. You're already falling behind. And in companies in India today, if you're growing at 20, 25, 30%, you're doubling every 3 years. Which means very often, in Europe, you grow 3-4% a year. It takes you 10 years to deliver 30-40% growth. Here you deliver that in 1 year. What happens? The same people, either you reskill them, upskill them, or they are obsolete to do the existing job that they're doing because the job has suddenly become twice the size. So how do you make people evolve fast enough, right, so that you don't have to change them to bring people of higher competencies? but you have people who are resourced with an eye on the future. And I can tell you this, despite a lot of thinking, we ourselves, I think, have fallen behind. I told you about capacity, right? We didn't have a good enough eye on the future. We've fallen short of manufacturing capacity. Our organization, I think, is creaking. There's too much of pressure on the organization because growth has come and the organization has just not grown fast enough. So the question is, how can you always be future ready so that you have an eye on the future and you're always solving with an eye on the future than solving for today? The eighth lesson is whatever you do in life, whichever job you do, always try and leave a legacy. And I'll give you a simple example. When I went and we were talking about interns today and internships and so on. So I did an internship, summer trainee internship at Hindustan Lever in 1982 in the midst of my IIM 2-year stint. And I went there and I was working with one of the junior most people there who was the sales officer. So he's the lowest level in the company. His boss is an area sales manager. And when I got to know this sales officer well, I was an intern, so if this guy was dog, I was dog's dog at that time, right? Couldn't get junior than that, more junior than that. And I was getting to know this sales officer and I was talking to him. And every time he would not talk about his current boss. He would not talk about the ASM before the current ASM. But he'd always talk about an ASM who was there 3 ASMs ago. And he would tell me, wo saab the, that sir was there. This is what he did for me. This is the systems he changed. This is the impact he made. Unhone jo bataya, whatever he told us is still going on even today. And that's when you realize that ASM left a legacy. The 3 after that passed through like a ship in the night.